The surging unemployment combined with plummeting tax revenue and massive budget gaps, leaving nearly a dozen states in financial crisis mode. There's a new report out, and it's grim, saying 10 states could soon be on the brink of bankruptcy. And it's not just California. California might be in the tightest spot, but not far behind is New Jersey, Rhode Island, Florida, Illinois, Michigan, hammered. Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and the state of Oregon. And Jeffrey Miron's a Harvard University economist, my guest out of Newton, Mass. And sir, good morning to you. Well, how do they dig themselves out of this before it affects the other 39 states?
They basically have to cut spending. In these states and many other states, the rate of spending always goes up enormously during good times. People act as though those are going to last forever, and they just spend like drunken sailors. And the only way to fix the situation in a significant way is to cut that spending back now and try to keep it low going forward.
Well, do you think that's likely? Are they going to cut the spending, or are they going to raise taxes? Is it option A or is it B most likely?
I suspect they'll end up doing some combination of both. What a lot of them, of course, are going to do is rely on that time-honored technique known as prayer, that is, hoping the federal government will bail them out. Obviously, that's not so likely. The federal government's in bad shape as well, but there may well be some deals where the federal government absorbs some of the losses. Of course, that's truly disastrous. It bails out the excessive spending by those states that were the most profitable.
I think you made two great points to our producers, and I just want to go into these a bit more. Your point is that these states, and many others just like them, they raise their spending excessively when times are good. So if that's the case, they're locked into a corner, aren't they?
They are locked into a corner. They have no choice but to try to reduce it now. And of course, there's a lot of things they're spending money on that are excessive. There are huge union wage premia in construction contracts, in teacher salaries. There's lots of goofy environmental projects, along with some which make more sense. There's bridges to nowhere and highways to nowhere. So there's a lot of stuff that should be cut regardless of the state of the budget. All the more reason to cut it if the budget is in such bad shape.
Well, give me a forecast, too, for this ripple effect, because we read about it all the time. And even if you don't live in one of those states, this is cause for alarm. Some of these states like Michigan, unemployment is well over 15%. The predictions are out there in other places it could go much higher than that. I mean, those are enormous numbers to me, numbers we have not seen since the early 1980s. If that is the case, how is the rest of the country going to deal with this?
Well, we're going to deal with it, I hope, by gradually letting the private sector start to rebuild. But nothing that the federal or the state governments are doing seems to be in that direction. We have accepted this view that only the government can get us out of the recession, as in fact, I think a large part of our problems come from the excessive government intervention. So I don't have any good optimistic scenario or any sort of surefire thing for policy to do. I think basically they need to stop trying to fix it and let it get better on its own.
Now, this map looks like election night, frankly. I mean, look at this. This unemployment above the rate of 10% in the country today. West Coast hammered.
Right.
The Southeast, Upper Midwest hammered as well. The jobs summit that was announced today by the president in the month of December, what can that do for us?
The job summit is basically just to try to convince people they should feel better. It's just sort of politics. Having a summit doesn't do anything. What creates more jobs is when the private sector believes that there are going to be good profit opportunities, believes the government's going to run sensible, stable, small government policies, and therefore people want to invest and produce, and then they hire more people to help them do that.
Think it's going to get worse before it gets better? I'm reading some forecasts here for 2010 that these states, if they don't take serious action now, the hole that they're living in could be much deeper.
Yeah, it could be a lot worse. There certainly are precedents for double-dip recessions. There's a lot of things that really haven't been fixed in the economy that should have been fixed. We haven't let housing prices fall nearly as much as they probably ought to fall. We've been propping that up. And we've been subsidizing risk-taking in a huge way, the same thing that got us into the initial mess. So there certainly are reasonable possibilities that we're in for a very long haul.
We're learning some tough lessons through this. 10 states, by the way, that we talked about, they account for 1/3 of the country's population, 1/3 of the nation's economic output. Jeffrey Miron, thank you for coming in today out of Newton, Massachusetts.
My pleasure. Thank you.